Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
I do.
Okay. Can you introduce yourself to the jury?
My name is Marcee Gray. I'm mother to Colt, Jenny and Colt Gray, and I'm married to Colt Gray.
Okay. And that's okay.
Is that good?
Yeah. Can you spell your first name for the court reporter?
Sure. Marcee.
Okay. So you mentioned.
Yes, we approach matter. Yes. That's what I was asking. I said, is there anything we can take care of? So, I looked at the reports. Cheater versus State, 300 Georgia Appeals 396. Says this court has previously held that a trial court has no obligation to inform a defendant's spouse of the existence of the marital privilege. We just know that it's going to be an issue. We kind of looked at it. Okay, but you do not have a case that says I need to, is that right? Okay. I'm going to proceed based on Virginia versus State, just saying that having no obligation to inform the existence of the marital privilege. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Gray. You indicated that you were married to Colt Gray. Can you point him out and identify him by a piece of clothing he's wearing?
He's wearing the light blue sweater and blue tie.
Okay. Please let the record reflect that Ms. Gray has identified the defendant. What are you doing right now?
Right now, I live in South Georgia, and I work in an industrial food processing plant. I work for the quality department there, and that's about it.
And do you currently have custody? You mentioned that you have 3 children. Do you currently have custody of any of them?
I do not.
Okay. And when did you get married to Colt Gray?
In 2007.
And does he have a nickname?
Coley. 2009. I got married in 2009. Sorry.
Okay. Are you a little bit nervous?
A lot nervous.
Okay. So you got married in 2009, and who is your first child?
Colt.
And when is his birthday?
He was born on January 14th, 2010.
Okay. And then who was your next child?
Jenny was born a little more than a year later, June 6th, 2011.
And then what about your last child?
Coley was born in 2016, and he was born on April 3rd.
Okay. And kind of just to summarize, so in September of 2024, would Colt have been 14?
Yes.
Okay. And then would Jenny have been 13?
Yes.
And then Coley would have been 8?
Yes.
Okay. And then, so does Coley have a nickname since his name is the same as,
I have a mama baby nicknames for him, but in general he goes by Coley.
okay. Did he go by Coley Jr. or?
Sometimes, maybe within our immediate family, but anyone else called him Coley.
And then are you and the defendant currently separated?
Yes.
Okay.
Legally, there's no documentation, but physically we're separated.
Okay. And then where were you living when Colt was born?
When Colt was born, we were living in Barrow County. We were actually living in Winder in a house that I had purchased before I met Colin. He was born at St. Mary's in Athens. And we continued living in my house until Jenny was born. And when she was about 6 weeks old, we moved to our next house, which was in Statham.
And did y'all stay in Statham for a fairly long time?
Yes, we did.
How long did y'all stay there?
Till 2018.
So I want you to kind of just summarize for us where y'all moved after then, up until y'all moved to Jackson County.
Okay. There's a lot. So we sold our farm in Statham in 2018. We moved into a rental home in Gainesville. We were there, and each of these rental homes that we were in less than a year. Many of them less than 6 months. So we moved to a rental home in Gainesville. It was on Lake Lanier. A couple of months later, we moved from that rental home into a second rental home. It was in Cumming, Georgia. We were there for, like I said, less than a year. At that point, in 2020, right at the beginning of 2020 is when we moved to Ben Hill County. That was during COVID. We were there for right at a year, at which point we moved back up to Jackson County. And the first place that we lived at was Traditions. We were there for, again, it was less than a year, maybe it was close to a year. After we left there, we actually moved into a rental Airbnb. That because it was a sudden move, we had to find somewhere to live really quick. That was in Lawrenceville. We were there for maybe 2 months, and then we moved to a second Airbnb. That was up in, I think technically it was Pendergrass was the address. And after that, we were there for maybe a month. At that point, we ended up at the house where Colin and Colt lived after me and the 2 younger children moved back to Fitzgerald.
Okay. And I will kind of get back into some of the dates as we go through. But you mentioned that you moved to Ben Hill around COVID, so that would have been March of 2020?
We moved in January of 2020 because I started a new job at like the first or second week of January.
Okay. And at that time, were you working, and what was the defendant doing?
Colin was just staying home.
Okay. And while y'all were, I guess let's kind of talk about where is Ben Hill and why y'all moved there.
Okay, so Ben Hill is where I was born and raised. It is about 3.5, 4 hours south of Atlanta, directly south down I-75. It's a fairly rural town. My mom was also born and raised in Fitzgerald, Ben Hill County. So the first time that we ended up going to Ben Hill County during COVID, we moved because, for one, we were having financial issues. Hence, while we were moving, we had to move several times. And then also, Colin was having issues with his back. So we wanted to move to hopefully get some support from my family. And we moved into my late grandmother's home. When my mom's mom passed away, she left her home to all of us grandkids to use as we saw fit. So we were going to move because we wouldn't have a mortgage and we could try to save some money and get back on the right path. And that would also allow Colin to get his back healed, so he wouldn't have to work.
So y'all moved to Ben Hill right before COVID. I want to fast forward to Colt's 6th grade year, which would have been the fall of 2021.
Okay.
At that time, were they still doing digital learning for a period of time?
Yes.
Was Colt attending classes from home in September of 2021?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, all three of them were.
Around September 10th of 2021, did the school contact you about something Colt had done while doing digital learning?
Yes, they did.
And how did they contact you?
The school counselor, she called me on the phone and said that basically she wanted to give me a heads up that they were sending some resource officers to the house. She told me basically what it was in regards to, and that they wanted to talk to me or Colt's dad, and they wanted to speak with Colt as well.
Okay. And when the school resource officers arrived at your house, what did you learn about what Colt had done?
Well, they basically reiterated what the guidance counselor had already told me on the phone, which was that Colt had basically found a way around the school's firewall and security software so that he could get on the internet and basically look up whatever he wanted to look up. And then they told me that he had researched, he had typed into the search bar how to kill my dad.
Okay. And at that time, did you tell the defendant about that search?
No.
Did you later tell him?
I did.
Okay. And do you remember around when you told him?
Not really, but it was several months later.
Did the Department of Family and Child Services become involved with your family around that same time of that search? I guess within a couple of months of that.
I think so. We moved not long after that is when we relocated back up to Traditions.
Okay. Before y'all relocated to Traditions, do you remember someone making an anonymous report to DFCS?
Yes.
And was it related to you slapping Colt?
Yes.
At that point, did DFCS start doing some home visits with y'all?
They did. They did the home visits, and then At that time, they wanted to do counseling, some type of counseling, and they ended up having a guy come to the house to do the counseling. And he kind of put us on a rotating schedule. Each week he would come, and 1 week he would talk to me, next week he would talk to Colin, next week he would talk to Colt. And I think by the time we had to finish because we were moving, I think we each had met with him at least twice,
Okay.
me, Colin, and Colt.
So y'all moved in the middle of this counseling.
Yes.
And so after about 2 sessions, that is when y'all went to Traditions?
Yes.
Would that have been around November or October or November of 2021?
Yes.
Okay.
And when we moved, DFCS basically closed the open case because, well, for one, they didn't find any evidence of any sort of abuse or neglect or anything like that. And then we were also moving, so they just went ahead and closed the case out.
So you would have been outside their jurisdiction once
Yes.
y'all moved?
Yes.
And you mentioned Traditions. What county is that in?
That's Jackson.
Do you remember what school the kids were in when y'all moved to Traditions?
They were in, I think they were in Jackson Middle School, I think. Jackson.
West Jackson? Does that
West
sound familiar?
Jackson, yes.
Okay.
It was about a mile from our house, so.
And so Colt would have still been in 6th grade when y'all moved. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you mentioned earlier that you had to make a quick move from Traditions. And that would that have been around August of 2022?
That sounds about right, yeah.
And why was it a quick move?
We got evicted.
And is that when y'all went to a few Airbnbs like you mentioned?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So then eventually you moved to Jefferson sometime kind of in that fall of 2022?
Yes, ma'am.
Where did the kids start going to school then?
Oh gosh. It was, I want to say it was, I don't want to say the wrong thing.
And does Jefferson City Schools sound familiar?
Yes, absolutely. That was it.
Okay.
And we were excited because Jefferson schools are known to be really, really good schools.
At that point, sometime around Halloween of 2022, was another DFCS report made.
Mm-hmm.
And what was that
Yes.
report about?
That report was, again, ended up being completely unfounded. And one of our neighbors had reported general neglect of our kids. She said that they were being sent to school dirty. They weren't being fed. I think she made claims that I was sitting in my car drinking alcohol, something alcohol related. And I think there were a couple of other things that she claimed as well.
When that DFCS report was made, did you move?
Did I move?
Yeah, eventually, or within a couple weeks of that, did you move?
Well, me and Jenny and Coley left and moved in November of 2022.
And where did the defendant and Colt stay?
They stayed there at the same house.
Why did Colt stay with the defendant?
I think in general, he had his room and everything, his computer and all that set up how he wanted it in his bedroom, and that was kind of his safe place. And I think a big part of it was he didn't want the change. He wanted to keep everything in his room the way it was. He didn't really give a concrete reason as to, hey, I don't want to go to Fitzgerald, I want to stay here. It just kind of went that way.
When you and Coley and Jenny moved down to Ben Hill, did Colt have a phone?
Yes.
Okay. Were you able to have contact with him while you were living in Fitzgerald or Ben Hill?
For the most part, no. I was not able to have much contact with him at all.
And did you have much contact with the defendant at that time?
It varied, but in general, not really, other than texts. And there were a couple times where I tried to facilitate him visiting his younger son. His daughter at the time didn't want to have anything to do with...
Objection. This is getting into hearsay, and it's not relevant.
We'll move on.
All right, just
So at any point did he, or how often did he visit you in Fitzgerald, or did you visit Colt and the defendant in Jefferson in that time frame where they were living alone?
I think Colin visited us in Fitzgerald twice, and I drove Coley up to visit them maybe 3 or 4 times. It was right towards the end.
While Colt was going to Jefferson Middle School for the 7th grade year, were you aware of any of the issues he was having at the middle school?
At some point, I was made aware of them. At the time that they took place, I was generally not aware of anything that was going on.
And then were you aware that Jackson County Sheriff's Office came out to the defendant's residence and wanted to talk to Colt about threatening to shoot up a school?
I had no idea that that happened until it came out in the media a year ago.
So at this time, you said you weren't aware until after everything happened. At this time, I'm going to display a text message from State Exhibit 150. Which is your cell phone extraction, and it's from September 5th of 2024. Can we do the first one?
What was the exhibit number?
It's 159. Marcee's cell phone extraction. So on September 5th, you said, "What the heck is this? I keep reading that the FBI investigated Colt last May about making online threats about a school shooting. It says they talked to you too." Is that the text message you sent to the defendant?
Yes.
Okay, and then he responded, I told you about that, and so did he. Someone in a chat room said it, not Colt. I had no idea what the chat room even was. More importantly, why do you have an open warrant? Was that his response?
Yes, that was his response.
Okay. And had either of them told you about it?
No.
Okay. Okay. So we're going to fast forward to August of 2023, a couple of months after the May incident with Jackson County Sheriff's Office. Did Colt move back in with you in Ben Hill?
Yeah. When was the month you said?
I have August of 2023.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And was it just Colt or the defendant come too?
I met the defendant off of I-75 to pick up Colt.
Okay. And why did he come and live with you?
Because, well, he had called several times leading up to that, wanting to come and live with me because he said he just couldn't.
Objection is the hearsay.
It goes to explain why he was moving to live with her. It goes to explain conduct and not for the truth of the matter asserted, not to explain. And I don't know exactly what she's going to say, but I assume she's going to explain why Colt wanted to move and also why the defendant allowed it to happen. Of course, if it's the defendant's statement, then it would be admissible.
I'm gonna have to hear what it is. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll just step out. Ask the question again.
Why did Colt move to Ben Hill?
So, like I said, Colt had already asked several times in the past and then changed his mind at the last minute. But he had been telling me over the phone that he couldn't take living with his dad anymore. They were constantly getting into physical altercations. That, it was a constant screaming battle between the two of them. And he was basically trapped there at that house because nobody else was ever involved with him up there. So he basically was saying he was at his breaking point.
Did you have any discussions with the defendant about him moving?
No, other than, can you meet me halfway?
Okay.
All right, so based on that response, I'm inclined to sustain the hearsay objection. It's being offered to prove what's going on between Colt and his dad. And I realize the line often blurs what's, this explained conduct is, we can't drive a bus through it all the time. So the line blurs on, is it for the truth of the matter asserted or for some other purpose? To me, this one falls more on the side of for the truth of the matter asserted, so I'm inclined to sustain the objection.
I just like you to do that in front of the jury so they know why she isn't answering the question.
That it's sustained?
Yep.
Sure. Is there a next question that we need to ferret out or no?
Well, I mean, did he bring him to meet you?
Well, that's obvious.
Yeah.
All right, bring him back in.
this room.
Okay. Sit or stand as you like.
You're ready, sir.
Y'all may seat. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, to the last question, there was a hearsay objection. I'm sustaining that objection. Let the state ask this next question.
So did the defendant meet you somewhere so that you could pick up Colt?
Yes, we met. I started driving north on 75 and he was driving south, and we were just going to meet wherever we met. I don't remember what exit it was, but we got off and Colt had not packed really anything. He had just gotten in the truck. He brought his guitar, and so we met in a random parking lot. It was just kind of an abandoned plot of land. And I said, you didn't bring any clothes? And he said, no. I said,
Objection,
that's...
hearsay.
Are you referring to who is he? Is it Colt or the defendant? Okay.
Colt.
So Colt didn't bring any clothes, and then what happened?
I told him, just get in the car.
The fact that he didn't bring clothes, or?
It's a statement, objection, because he is making a statement regarding what he did or didn't do. It sounds like the statement is going to prove the truth of parental fitness one way or another.
I mean, Marcee can testify to what she observed that day. She observed that he didn't bring any clothes. She observed what the defendant did next. I think she can testify to that because it goes specifically to parental fitness and what their interactions are and what the defendant and Colt are doing. I mean, I think that's relevant to this whole case. What she observed.
There's no issue with her testifying what she observed.
And that's not what I'm objecting to.
No suitcases, no clothes, whatever.
Right. I'm objecting to when she asked Colt, why do you not have, and then getting into his answer, which would be hearsay because he's not here to testify.
Which was not my question. I said Colt didn't bring any clothes. Then what happened? Then what did you, like, I didn't ask her what Colt said. So,
ma'am, if the answer to the question is going to be revealing what Colt said, do not do that. If you had an observation of what he did or didn't have with him, you're free to testify about
Okay.
that.
So just, you observed he didn't have anything with him.
Yes.
Except for his guitar.
Yes.
Then what happened?
So I told him to get in the car. I would buy some new clothes for him, underwear, whatever. And I just instructed him to get in the car. I needed to get his guitar, and Colin threw it across the parking lot. He was very aggressive towards Colt. And again, I told Colt, just get in the car, please. Please, just get in the car, let's go. So I went and got his guitar, put it in the car, and we left.
When y'all got to Ben Hill, was Colt supposed to be in the 8th grade?
Yes.
And did you enroll him in school that August?
So he was only with me for about a month. When I picked him up, I told he wanted to try online school. And so I started the process of enrolling him in online school. His sister then she wanted to do online school too. She was already enrolled and attending school in Ben Hill County with her little brother. But I started enrolling her as well. Again, Colt was only with me for about a month, so he never got the opportunity to start the online school.
What was Colt's behavior like in Ben Hill?
Colt's behavior was alarming. It was very different from the Colt that I remembered, that I had left with his dad when we left in 2022. He had a lot of anger inside, and he was very aggressive and unpredictable. So much so that I ended up relocating his little sister across town to my parents' house because I didn't want to leave her there alone with him. And then his little brother basically just never left my side. I just had, he was with me wherever I went when he wasn't in school. But Colt, he damaged a lot of things while he was there. Again, he was just, you could tell that he had a lot of anger and just yuck inside of him.
You said he damaged a lot of stuff. What kind of stuff did he damage?
All of the flat screen TVs that I had in the house. He broke several windows. He would take knives and make cuts on different things like walls and the leather in my car, the leather seats, just kind of like random damage. He wrote on a bunch of stuff, walls and that sort of thing.
And on October 3rd, did your dad actually contact the police because of something Colt had damaged?
Yes.
What had he damaged on October 3rd?
I think that was when he broke, the first time he broke a window. He had broken a window because from slamming the door really, really hard. It's an old house, and so the windows are old. And if you're not careful, you slam a door hard enough and it'll shatter a window. And I'm pretty sure that's what happened. And then once that happened, I kept fixing it by basically taping it up and putting a piece of cardboard over it until we could get someone to come and professionally fix the window. And he kept punching through the cardboard. As soon as I'd fix it, he'd punch through it again. And I think it was the window was the actual reason why he called the police that one day.
And did the defendant come and get, or did Colt go and live with the defendant immediately after that?
Immediately after the second time, so my dad actually called the police twice, or went by to see the police twice. The second time, and each time they came, I would basically ask them, please don't take him to jail. You know, I don't want anything on his record. Can you just talk to him? Which they did. They actually offered to stand there and supervise while I spanked him or like physical punishment. I was like, no, I don't want to do that. He was bigger than I was at the time. I just want y'all to talk to him and, you know, just hopefully talk some sense into him. Well, after the second time it happened, he immediately got on the cell phone with his dad.
And just related to what
Yes.
the defendant said, not what Colt said.
Yep. He had the phone on speakerphone, so I could hear, because I didn't have my phone at that point. I'm not sure where it was, but I said, let me talk to your dad. And so he didn't want to give me his phone, so he put it on speakerphone so I could speak to Colin on speakerphone on Colt's phone. And, you know, I had not been communicating with Colin at all. Since he dropped Colt off, communication basically was non-existent. So he didn't know anything about what Colt had been doing or, you know, his behavior. And I immediately started trying to explain to Colin what had been going on, and I couldn't get any words in edgewise before he immediately wanted to say, "Why are you doing this to our son? Why are you calling the police on our son? Why would you do this?" And it took him, you know, less than 5 minutes to have Colt convinced that I was the one calling the police. I was trying to get him sent, you know, to juvenile detention. And once he had him convinced of that, Colt refused to talk to me. He just wanted to go back with his dad.
And when did he leave?
I think he left like the next day after that second time the police were called.
While you were in Ben Hill County with Colt, had you scheduled some counseling for him?
Yes.
Is that at the...
Healing Connections
Okay.
was the place, but he never made it because he went back with his dad.
So his first counseling session supposed to take place after he left?
Yes, ma'am.
And did Coley Jr. and Jenny stay with you in Ben Hill at that point?
Yes, at that point, yes, they did.
When the defendant took Colt home or met, I guess, or met you or your mom halfway, where did they go to live at that point?
They were still living at that same house.
In Barrow County?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or no.
And
they were at the Barrow County house.
Okay.
Yep, you're right.
We are in October of 2023.
Yes, they were definitely in Barrow County.
And so again, Colt should have been in the 8th grade. Did the defendant enroll him in the 8th grade in Barrow County?
No.
Did he attend any schools in the 8th grade?
No.
Now, when Colt went back to Barrow County and you were still in Ben Hill with Coley and Jenny, did you still have an open defects case?
Yes. My case manager had told me that the next time she saw me, she was going to close the case, because over the prior year, you know, I had been doing everything they wanted me to do. I had, you know, they were drug testing me the whole year long, hair follicle, urine tests, and I had been doing everything I was supposed to do.
What happened at that next visit where they were supposed to close the case?
So instead of closing the case, they gave me someone had called and made an anonymous report, and they drug tested me.
And did you pass or fail that test?
I failed that test.
When you failed the drug test, what happened?
When I failed the drug test, I guess it's the Saturday after my case manager got the results. She showed up. Actually, me and Jenny and Coley were spending the night at my parents' house because my parents, at that point in time, had gone on a trip to Virginia. And we would do that a lot, just spend the night at my parents' house because it was just kind of a fun thing to get out of the house, our house. And so we were there, and my case manager, Tamika Mitchum, showed up at their front door with Colin and Colt to basically tell me I had failed the drug test, and she was sending Jenny and Coley to live with their dad. And
at that point, did you have custody of any of your children?
Well, it wasn't a custody case at that time. They were just physically going to stay with their dad. It had not gone to the phase of addressing custody, with a judge or anything like that.
I guess none of them were living with you, is that correct?
That's correct.
And did the defendant have kind of authority over them at that point?
Yes.
And were they all living in Bear County at the Harrison Mill address?
Yes.
After you failed that drug test, did things go downhill for you?
Big time.
Tell us what happened.
Well, after the initial devastation of having them taken and sent with their dad, I, for one, was faced with the reality that Jenny and Coley were now living in the house with their dad, where things were horrific, and there was nothing I could do about it. So I started trying to reach out to Colin to set up visitations, because the case manager said that I was entitled to have as many supervised visitations.
Object to the hearsay as to what the case manager told her.
I think I understand your latest sustaining of the objection about hearsay related to explain conduct, but this is squarely within that. She is trying to set up visitation because she was told she was allowed to have visitation. So I do believe that fits within that exception.
I believe our harm is also very low, where the caseworker already testified to that fact.
I don't think the caseworker testified exactly to what she is saying.
I believe she testified that she was allowed to have visitation, so I think she testified that visitation was up to the defendant, not that she had an absolute right to visitation. Visitation was at the right of the defendant.
I believe you're correct. Was she saying something different just then?
Yes. I think we're splitting hairs. She wasn't prevented from seeing her children. So she could have visitation. She was allowed to have visitation. If it's up to the defendant, she's calling him to try to set that up. That's exactly what she's testifying to. Trying to act like she's saying something completely different is just not true. She is saying she's calling the defendant to set up the visitation because she was allowed to, and he is the one who has custody, so she has to go through him.
And this bitch testified that she was not entitled to visitation. Any visitation was to be done through the defendant based on his determination. Not that she had an absolute right to visitation.
That is a misinterpretation of what Ms. Mission testified to. She did not say she was not entitled to visitation. That is not what happened.
So, ladies and gentlemen, you'll have to remember what the DFCS worker, case manager testified to. I'm going to let the witness go ahead and answer. So,
So, I mean, I can rephrase.
No, he's overruled the objection, so.
Okay.
You were, I guess, where we're at.
There
is
was
you
no
were-
restrictions to me having visitation or seeing my children other than it needed to be supervised. She did say that I needed to schedule it with Colin. So I started reaching out immediately because, I wanted to see them as much as humanly possible. And it immediately became apparent, which I knew it would, that he was not going to communicate with me whatsoever. He had blocked my phone number, and I know that because I checked it the next time I saw him and had access to his phone. He basically refused to not only not let me see or speak to my kids, but he refused to speak to me himself. So my children were living somewhere where I knew was a nightmare for them, and now I can't get any sort of updates or any sort of contact with them. I tried to get my mother to reach out. She was met with the same obstacles. I reached out to Tamika, the case manager, asked her for her help, and the only thing she offered was transportation to see the kids. I told her, I don't need transportation, I need someone to facilitate some sort of communication between me and their father. And it just never happened. I couldn't get any help from anyone. At one point later in the month, I called in a wellness check with Barrow County just so I could have someone put their eyes on my children to make sure that they were still alive. And I also knew that none of them had been enrolled in school, so I couldn't verify through school that they were still breathing. And so then, I never did end up getting any kind of communication or updates or anything like that.
And what did that do to your mental health?
I basically had a complete nervous mental breakdown. I think as any good mother would. My kids were and still are my entire world. And to go from being in constant contact with my two younger children, for sure, to nothing. I felt like they had been kidnapped almost. I was just devastated. I wasn't eating. I wasn't sleeping. I was desperate. Desperation is a good word for what I was feeling.
What did you do after that?
So that led to, it was right after Halloween. I basically decided that I was going to drive to Barrow County and just physically go and knock on the door and say, "What are you doing to me, to our kids? Can I just see them?" And so I was not in my right mind at the time. But I went to my mother's house and I told her what I was going to do, and I wanted her to go with me. Just to be another person, to be there to observe what takes place, and to be there, to support or take the kids, to McDonald's or something if I needed to talk things out with Colin, just to be there in general. And she knew that I was not in my right mind, and so she said, "No, I'm not driving you to Wander. I'm not going with you," which I had not expected. I never thought in a million years that she would say, "No, I'm not going with you." And so I then was in a situation where I still am going. I'm still going to go. But now my mom knows I'm going, and I wasn't going to, drag her and force her into the car or anything. But I knew she would call Colin the second I left the house. And, then I'd never see the kids. It would be a wasted trip. So, in my messed up mind, somehow I decided that I'll just tape you to a chair, and then I'll have a friend of mine come over later to let you loose as soon as I have had time to make it to Wander and see the kids.